And we're back again.
Hello.
We're back again, actually. And actually, about 2 weeks later, like we said we would, which is pretty good for us. It's pretty good for us considering the world's got even crazier than it was before.
Oh, goodness. There's so many things. I mean, we have scheduled things we're talking about, but there's so much more we could open up. But we've been told we shouldn't do politics all the time, so we're moving on.
We shouldn't do politics as much. So we'll talk this week, or this episode, we'll talk about something that's not as crazy as Canadian politics, and that being that being flat Earth, because it doesn't sound crazy at all.
No, not at all. That sounds real. Totally. We all know where we stand on that. So
yeah. So flat Earth. I could be persuaded either way, actually. And,
I'm not shocked by that. By you saying that.
And part of that is because of this crazy decade, right? To me, a lot has changed since 2020, right?
Definitely.
So
a lot which you wouldn't think would be true.
And a lot of stuff seems to come to the surface, or has been coming to the surface, and you're like, and it's like, really? What?
That's what I mean.
How did I not know that before? How did I not notice that before?
I mean, I highly doubt the Earth is flat is going to come to a truthful scenario, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, I think it's I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly still on the fence about COVID and whether it was real or not, whether it was, because there was a lot of weird shit that went on with that. But that could be for another episode.
We bonded over COVID, so we should do that.
And the fact that we're still talking after
true. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. It all started with that, right? And I don't know. I mean, as we talk about flat Earth, we'll just say that Netflix has a documentary. It's been out for a while. It's called Behind the Curve, I think. And it is worth watching. But while we talk about Netflix, there's Joe Rogan has a stand-up comedy thing on there, and one of his funniest lines on there, I think, was that when he started talking about COVID, he says 2020. He said, before 2020, he said, I believe in the moon landing. I believe in like the vaccination, the medical system, the government, all that. He says, nothing wrong with it at all. Since COVID, I don't believe any of that shit. It's all, it's like,
that's a whole other thing, but I wonder why.
Like, none of it's real, but to go back to my point to start with, it's like a lot of things have changed since 2020. And I would say, like a lot of people, I was probably, quite happy with whatever was going on in the world, right? Asleep, to put it into a Matrix context, suddenly been woken up to the craziness that's going on, and maybe not everything that we're fed on the TV and is real, or it's truthful. It's truthful.
Yeah.
A lot more of what we're told appears to be propagandized. But I don't know. Again, I mean, that's like, we can talk about that for hours. Anyway, flat Earth is why we're here. And whether we think it's real or not. And like I said, I could be persuaded either way, because people say, why don't you just trust what you see? And if I look out the window, I don't see anything curved. It's flat. Even if you go up high, it's nice and flat. I don't see anything curving away.
I totally get that. I completely get that. But if we go to like we had talked about the history of the flat Earth theory, okay? Like the early civilizations believed Earth was flat. It was often seen as a disc floating in water, right?
Right.
Okay. Right. Here's my theory. Back then, they didn't have the technology or the ability to be able to go into space and see it. Right. So they had to just kind of go by observation. So exactly what you did, like look around and looks flat. All right. You know?
Yeah.
Whereas we've evolved so much since then. We have astronauts that have gone into space hundreds and hundreds of times that have seen that the Earth is round.
Right.
So I guess the question becomes do we believe them?
So right. So this is it, right? This is maybe as it says in our notes, this is maybe the start of the flat Earth conspiracy, if you want to call it that. Is that a lack of trust in
yes,
a lack of trust in the authority figures, shall we say?
And we're right back to politics.
And it's. So, we don't believe, we don't believe what the government's telling us. We don't believe that, we think that NASA is lying to everybody about Earth being a globe. And,
okay, but you think about the scope of that. How many people work for NASA that you have to keep that secret under wraps?
Right,
that's insane. There's no way that you would be able to do that.
Right, and that's one of the counter arguments. It's like if it's a global deception, how do you get everybody? How do you get every government of every country and every space agency of every country to agree to this and lie?
Right, because it's not just the U.S., it's not just Canada, it's every country has had an astronaut up there at some point.
And I'm fairly certain if NASA wanted to tell everybody that the world that it was a flat Earth we lived on, I'm fairly certain that China wouldn't play along.
Yeah,
their space agency
this is the
would
one
be like,
thing that they would be like, oh yeah, let's do that. No, they're not. No, that's.
The China Space Agency would never agree.
No.
So, do we really
wouldn't keep secrets? That's like their MO. We don't keep secrets.
So we have to trust. So until I can see it with my own eyes, though, until I see it with my own eyes, we've got to trust that what we're being told, that we do live on a globe, and we are in space, and we are in a solar system, and we are in an infinite universe, potentially. We have to trust that that's true, because okay, I can look up at the night sky and it looks like night sky to me, and the moon looks real and everything. It looks solid, but is it a projection on a dome? Is it fake? I don't know.
I'm gonna say no, but shocking, I know. But I just don't again, I go back to the scope of that. That is huge. There are millions of people on the earth. How would you, first of all, who's doing it? If there's millions of people on the earth, who's on the outside playing this game with us? That's what I want to know is how are you controlling that? And if it's somebody on the inside, then what? Again, I go back to how are you keeping that secret? Because it wouldn't just be you controlling this one little dome thing. It would be thousands of people.
So here's a theory. I don't think it's actually on our list, but I've heard this before, that it's a global conspiracy. It's a global conspiracy that we live on a globe. Right. We do live on a flat plane. We are the center of the universe. We are special.
Right.
We have a creator. Right? We didn't just evolve out of the soup, You mean
there was no apple?
Evolution. No. So evolution is evolution is a lie, right? We were created, and Earth is the center of the universe. We are the center, right? Everything goes around us.
Okay. Yeah.
And the lie is that we live on a globe and that we are insignificant and not special, right? Because it would be a way for the governments of the world, whoever's in charge, would be able to control us more because we don't see ourselves as special or as important. We're just, a grain of sand on the beach in the middle, in the universe. We're nothing special.
All right.
So I've heard that argument. I say it's not on our list, but I've heard. So it's an the globe theory, shall we say, is that it's an anti-religious. Because most people, I think most of the population on Earth, it has some kind of religion, right?
Right.
But it's to destroy that. Because if you
Yeah.
feel you're special and you were created, it could be very empowering for some people,
That
and
is,
and the
yeah.
governments don't want that, right?
So you're saying it falls into the argument of like which is true, evolution or
Right,
religion?
right,
Because
yes.
that is the ultimate divide of everybody, right?
And people point out with evolution is okay, if we evolved out of the primordial soup, right, which
Mhm.
has taken millions of
Monkeys.
years, why has nobody ever found the missing link between like the apes and humans? Nobody's found that transitional animal. There's no, as far as I know,
Mm.
there isn't any examples or sample fossils. Fossils, that's the word I was looking for. There's been no remains found of this missing link,
Yeah.
so, which is weird, which
Um,
is odd, because you'd think if it took millions of years, because there's no,
right.
you know, are we supposed to believe that the caveman is the missing link between like the ape and the modern human? I don't
Are we
know.
supposed to believe that we were just manifested out of thin
Or,
air
which
in a
then,
garden?
so,
Just saying.
right,
Both
yes.
seem a little like,
Yeah, and then okay, so where am I going with that? I don't know.
mm,
So that just seems odd, right? That there's this
yeah.
missing link. So if evolution is a lie,
Mm,
were we created on a flat planet and we are special and we are living in a dome? Don't know,
mm.
but maybe Elon will fly me up in one of his spaceships so I can look back and see
I mean, you could always ask him.
whether it's a globe or not, or whether when he goes to Mars. When I go to Mars with him,
I feel like he's not going to be very
I'm,
busy
I'm
in the near future. So,
I'm gonna, yeah,
mhm.
yeah, his bromance is over, isn't it?
His
With
bromance is over. Like, publicly over.
anyway,
Wow. Anyway, yeah.
so, so, come on,
Yes.
back to flat Earth.
Yeah.
So we're
Okay.
either, so
Yeah.
we're either living on the flat plane and we were created, right,
Mhm.
by God, if you want to use that term,
Mhm.
but if it's evolution, then that's broken as well because there's this missing piece, the transitional
I suppose.
thing
Yeah.
between the apes and modern humans,
Yeah.
right? So where did modern humans come from? So then that must mean that we live on a planet in a universe then, and
Mm,
maybe we were seeded here by
maybe.
some other civilization, and I say that because of other ancient civilizations here on Earth have just seemed to have disappeared, like the Mayans or the Incas or even the Egyptians, and some of their structures. There
Mm.
is no there is no way they were built with horse and cart and hammers and chisels.
You don't know that. You
I
weren't
don't know
there.
that, but
But
if
that's
we
what I'm
don't,
saying. You
but if we
weren't
can't do
there.
that, we can't do that now. How did we do it then?
I don't know. And what do you mean we can't do that now? We could probably build a pyramid now.
Well, probably, but not with horses and carts and
Well, because we
hammers
don't
and
have
chisels,
to.
and an endless supply of slaves. I guess maybe
Well, yeah, there
we don't
is
have
that,
that either.
which we obviously don't do anymore. So,
So
thankfully, let's just get that out there.
okay, so is
Mhm.
it is there a massive global deception for everybody? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that would take more. That takes more work than the truth of.
Yes. And also the people, yeah. And also the people that started, like I can see here, the people that started to talk about the earth being round are very well respected scientists.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, or even like theorists or psychologists, you know?
Right. So, but maybe they're lying to us.
I mean, maybe, but they also like who else is on this list? Like, didn't they also what did Isaac Newton invent?
So,
Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, he's obviously not an idiot. So
yeah. Well, was it the didn't was it here was it he was the apple in the tree. What was he? Apple on the head or something? Maybe he got shot in the head
yes.
instead of
No, he didn't.
you
We're
know
just
maybe.
getting we're just guessing. This is all guessing, by the way.
Well, that's what. Now, here's one of the arguments, right? Here's one of the other arguments. I think I'm not sure if it's on. Is it on here? That gravity is a lie, right? Gravity is a lie. It's not
How
real.
so?
It's to do with density and buoyancy instead, right?
Okay.
So there is no gravity on a flat Earth. There's no gravity. It's just the fact that something falls or floats because of its density or its buoyancy, right? Gravity is not a force. I,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I kind of believe in gravity because if I fall off the roof,
Yeah.
I know I'm going to hit the ground.
100%. Like I was just thinking that. I'm like,
I mean, I
well,
know
what?
I know I'm pretty dense as well in all meanings of that word, but
I mean, no
and I know,
argument from me,
and
but
and I know and I know I'm not a great swimmer. I'm not a great swimmer, so I know my buoyancy is not that great either.
it just like that whole thing doesn't make any sense. What?
I don't. Yeah, I think it's the
Mm,
whole the whole density buoyancy argument is like where
mm,
you oil and water obviously separate, right? Because
yes.
they're different densities.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think the argument is that it works like that. You know,
Yeah, but we're not
things that
liquid.
are things that are things that are denser in the things that are denser than the air
Uh-huh.
obviously fall to the ground. But if you
Uh-huh.
have something that is lighter than air, it floats up or stays in. You know, it's like a helium balloon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Helium is lighter than air, so it floats away. I don't know. That's
I don't know much about. I really don't. I don't want to comment because I don't know much about that
I don't think
scientific aspect of it. But it
I don't
sounds
think.
hokey.
Oh, here. It is on our list. Gravity is
Okay.
just a theory. Gravity doesn't exist. Things fall because of density and buoyancy.
Uh-huh.
But as it says here, density and buoyancy explain and you already said it, how things float and sink in a fluid, but don't
Mhm.
explain how things fall down in the first place,
That's what I'm
like
saying.
gravity does.
Like what keeps you grounded in the first place?
Right, right.
Because when you jump, I can
Vel-
understand that you
yeah,
would fall.
right,
But how am I walking around and
right,
staying like
right.
on the ground?
So yeah, I don't Velcro shoes maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly. I wear Velcro shoes every day of my life. What?
To stop
How do you
yourself
make sure
floating up,
everybody walks around with Velcro shoes?
to stop yourself supermaning around everywhere
Like,
and
right.
flying off, right?
Which would be so fun.
So here's a good one. So
Mhm.
here's a good one for the for flat Earth. And I
Mhm.
don't know about this. I've seen maps on the internet, so it must be true.
Okay.
Antarctica is not a continent; it's a wall. It's a wall around us, and we live, and it's containing the oceans. We live on a flat plane, and Antarctica is the ice wall. Sounds a bit like Game of Thrones, but
Well, okay. Ever notice how these theories come from those things? Like we had talked about the Truman Show, that other show you were talking about, and now we have Game of Thrones. Like, come on.
yeah,
People are
yeah.
just watching too much TV. They're bored. They're watching movies and TV, and they're going, "Oh yeah, that must be true."
So we are in a giant pond, right? That's what they're saying. And there's other worlds, other lands. If we could just get over this ice wall far enough, there are other lands, right? And that's what is meant by the term extraterrestrial, right? It's not,
Oh
and it's not.
my!
Extraterrestrial doesn't mean from another planet. It means from another land on this plane. What do you think to that?
I think that's stupid. Okay, I challenge someone to go climb over this wall. Then
Right, right.
go do
Well,
it. Then how come nobody's ever not done it?
right, right.
We have ice wall climbers. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
How come those people have never done that before?
Also, why is it so cold there as well? Right.
The Antarctica?
Why is it? Why is it always?
I
If
mean, I
it's
don't know.
if we live on a flat plane with an ice wall, we live in this pond.
Yeah, true.
Why is that? Why is it so cold there all the time?
I don't know.
Is that just to stop us getting over we die of hypothermia and frostbite before we can get far enough across
Maybe.
to the other
Also,
lands?
it's like if a cruise ship hit this ice wall, don't you think something would happen?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? All the water would drain out.
Yeah, like a plug.
Where-
Like you pulled the plug and there's a hole and
Where
it
would
just
all-
all goes away.
Where will the oceans go?
That's what I'm saying. That doesn't
So
make any sense. That's stupid.
I know. Anyway, now the other problem is apparently. So the other reason I think we could be living on a flat Earth is I don't feel the Earth moving. It's supposed to be spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, right? Because
Right.
yeah, because it's supposed to be spinning at 1,000 miles an hour because its circumference is 24,000 miles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 24 hours in a day. That's the speed it's moving at, but we don't feel that.
I have
Is
read places that that is actually quite slow.
right.
And like we wouldn't feel that anyway. Like when you're on a cruise ship, you don't actually feel like it's moving.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It's kind of the same thing. Like it's moving, but you
mm-hmm.
can't tell unless you look like at the ocean.
Right.
And when you look over the side of
But
the
that's what gives everybody motion sickness, isn't it?
actually no, it is supposed to make the motion sickness go. I've been on two. It makes the motion sickness go away because I can see that I'm actually moving.
Right, right.
Whereas
But
like
yes, that's what I mean. So wouldn't we
yeah,
all have motion sickness because we're on a spinning ball that we can't see
but
or
you don't
feel is
ever
moving?
see
So
but
wouldn't that
everything
make
is
us feel?
moving at the same speed that you are.
Wouldn't that
So
make us feel
like
ill?
no, because everything is moving. Everything is moving at the same speed that you are. So if you go and you look somewhere, it's also moving with you. So there's no place to like actually look where you can
Right,
see that you're moving. The only place I would think about it is the sky. Like if
right,
you looked up at the sky, the clouds are moving.
right.
But we often look up at the sky and interpret that as the clouds are moving, when in actual fact, are the clouds moving or is it us that's moving?
I
The
don't know.
clouds are staying there and we're moving, but we just trained our brains to think about it the other way
Yeah,
around.
yeah. I mean, yes, it's as you said. It's like being on a ship or
Yeah.
being in a car or being in an aircraft, right?
Right.
I mean, aircraft is moving at 500 miles an hour or 500 kilometers an hour,
Right.
but you don't feel that it's moving unless there's any acceleration or deceleration,
Right.
right? You're just moving along, you know. Same as if you're on going down the highway in the car, right? You don't feel that you're moving along at 100 kilometers an hour,
Right.
unless there's any change in direction or acceleration or deceleration,
Exactly. But
right?
with the earth, there's never a change in direction. It's always spinning the same way.
Right. And all the atmosphere and water and everything moves as well. So
Right.
yeah, maybe.
Maybe this is what I'm saying. There is actual logic to some of the reasoning. Huh.
So anyway, now there's a point on here. It says airplane or aircraft flight paths don't make any sense. We're going to save this one for the second episode because we're getting
Yeah.
our pilots on to explain this to us.
Yes, because
So
I don't know anything about I was like, if you expect me to say something about this, I don't know.
I don't know anything
So
about it
yeah,
either.
we'll leave it to the experts.
And it also says here that there are no real photos of Earth. It says here, even the NASA fakes all the space photos using CGI and composite images. That nobody's taken a full photo of the Earth. Now,
Hmm.
it's been pointed out in several of those photos, right? That are
Uh,
obviously composites. People have found the same cloud patterns repeated over and over again,
hmm.
right? So that's obviously a composite photo. And it can't be real because it's like a fingerprint, right? You're not going to have the same cloud pattern multiple times on a photo of the Earth. It would be
Okay,
impossible.
theory.
Be impossible. It would be impossible.
I have a theory.
Okay.
Again, I go back to what if we're the ones that are moving and the clouds aren't?
Okay.
So we're moving around this whole time and we pass the same cloud pattern over and over and over again.
Okay. Maybe.
But that would involve us still being round. Just saying. Because we have to turn. I'm just saying.
Okay. All
I
right.
don't know anything about cloud patterns, so I'm probably wrong, but
No,
just throwing it out there.
I don't know. So
Yeah.
what else we got? Yeah. So what do we think then? So we think we're on a globe or we think we're on a flat disc? I don't know. So,
I'm not
I
so
mean,
sure.
really, it could go either way.
Wait, I want to
Couldn't
go
it?
back to NASA lying about everything.
Right.
I want to go back to that. Okay, I do believe that maybe, when they were doing the race to the moon,
Right.
Okay. I do believe that the States, yes, was the first one to get there. I do believe that. However, it wouldn't put it past them, knowing what I know now, to have maybe a contingency plan if that didn't work out. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? And that's what people are finding. And they're therefore going like, oh, well, they were going to lie about it if they didn't do it. So they must
Maybe,
be lying about everything else.
maybe they're lying about everything else.
Right.
Well, the whole moon landing thing is, the whole moon landing thing is a different thing, and maybe we'll do that one as well.
Yeah.
Because there's
That one has
definitely
a lot of like conspiracy surrounding it for sure.
for sure, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I mean, it was so long ago now, and did we have the technology to do it? It's odd
Right.
that the astronauts involved. I'm not sure if they're all still alive, but I think they are. The astronauts involved don't really like talking about it. Seems odd,
Hmm.
It's
Or was it just scary? Like the technology back then is not what it is now. So
no,
maybe to even get them there in the first place was like a horrific experience because you've got this. If you think about like a spaceship,
yeah.
how long ago was it? 50 years ago?
It's got to
Was
be
it
right. It was in the
Was it?
'60s, right?
It was
It
in
was
the
in the
60s.
yeah,
So
yeah,
70 years ago.
yeah.
Imagine what a spaceship looked like back then compared to what it looks like now. Like,
Well, the
can you oh
photos,
my God.
the photos I've seen of the moonlander,
Mhm.
supposed moonlander, looks like it was held together with construction paper and shower curtain rods.
That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe it was. So maybe this was like an experience for them where like it's not a happy experience. It's like PTSD. Like,
Yeah.
congratulations, you made it, but it was horrible getting there and it was horrible getting back. You know?
Yeah, maybe, or maybe it was all a lie
Yeah.
because maybe it was all a lie. They couldn't get there because of the dome over us, right? So
I
they
just took
couldn't.
a sip of something when Steve said that and I almost spit it out all over the place.
So maybe we just can't go to the moon because like the movie The Truman Show, it's just a projection on a dome above. It's not real, so we can't go
Mhm.
there.
Okay, but then how did Russia get there?
But did they? They'd be in. They're part of the. They're lying to us as well. Part of the
Uh-huh.
lying.
And
Well,
everybody else is lying to us too? Like every
that's
other country that has an astronaut on the moon or stuck their flag there or whatever, they're
that's
all
the
lying to us.
that's the that's the only way it works, right? Is if they're
Okay,
all lying.
then I'm going to go to a political question. You can get every single country in this world to agree to that, but you can't get them to agree not to kill each other? Are you kidding
The-
me right now? Like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life, that they would all agree to this, but they wouldn't agree to, like, keep the peace. That makes no sense. That in itself just sounds stupid.
Maybe,
Yes? You know
maybe,
I'm right. You know that that's ridiculous. That they
maybe.
would
See,
agree to
but
a fake Earth, but they wouldn't agree to, "Hey, maybe let's not blow each other
that's
up."
why. That's why they. That's why we. There's too many. Okay, so there's too.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
There's too many of us living on this flat earth under this dome, right? So we have a war every now and then to get rid of us.
Yeah.
Get rid of a few people. So that's why they can't agree on peace between the countries, because we need to have a cull every now and then.
Uh,
We need to get rid of the useless eaters, as they call us.
oh my God. That is exactly like, do you remember, this is going way off topic, but do you remember there was I guess you could call him a theorist. He wrote about how to save money and keep the population under control
Okay.
by by eating peasants. Do you remember that?
No,
By
I
like
don't.
it was way back in like,
I don't remember that.
it was
Eating the
BC
peasants.
time. But he wrote this paper about like basically eating poor people is the way to like reestablish the norm.
Okay.
If I will, don't hold me to that, but I will find it. I
That's
will.
actually. That sounds like. This? Here's an old movie. All right.
Okay.
Well, it'd be old for you anyway. But actually,
Is that because I'm so much younger than you?
that's it's even old for me. Actually, it's the movie Soylent Green, I think it's called.
Okay.
Starred old movie actor Charlton Heston. right? I think
Okay.
it's from a novel as well. It
All
was
right.
adapted to, I think it was adapted to the screen, right? Into a movie. It's never been, as far as I know, it's never been remade. A bit like the movie, and it's in the same vein as the movie 1984 from the
Right.
George Orwell book,
Right.
where society has collapsed and they keep control of society. They keep control of society by there's food rationing and things like that, right?
Okay.
For all the
A similar
peasant
idea.
for all the peasants, right?
Right.
But and what they're it's the Soylent company or whatever produces the food, and they hand out the food every week. It's
Mm-hmm.
dried. It comes in bars, right? It comes in
Okay.
for the sake of argument, it's like a granola bar, right?
Okay.
But it has everything you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people obviously aren't happy with the population isn't happy with this, and there's massive
Obviously.
unrest, societal unrest, and everything. But the elites are still, very much in charge. So, but the whole premise of the story is that this one cop
Mm-hmm.
starts to see through the charade of it all. Right? It's not,
Okay.
and the reason that there's the population control is that the bars are made out of the people that the state has been killing.
Ew. Ew.
Um,
Ew. Ew.
and people that have the people that show there's a scene in the movie that shows things there's a riot going on, but it shows the authorities moving in with like these big like garbage trucks with scoops on the front, and they scoop up the bodies and the live people as well. They just scoop up the rioters and throw them in the back of the garbage truck. Right?
Oh my God.
So
That is
then
horrific.
and he finds out, and there's a whole black market. There's a whole black market for like real food and things like that, right?
Right.
So the regular people have zero access to regular food,
Right.
like we have today, regular food. There's no access to that. All you eat are these food rations, this Soylent Green that is handed out, and it's, as I say, it's from people that break the law, the criminals, shall we say, in society, or the people that the elites don't agree with, and people that die of old age, are all turned into these meal bars for the rest of the population.
That is the most disgusting thing
Isn't
I've
it?
ever heard. That is just like,
It's a
ugh, that's
movie.
next level gross.
It's a movie. It's a movie from the 70s, right? So
Okay.
they've never remade it or whatever, but
Well, yeah.
there are.
Although I will say, have you ever seen The Walking Dead? Because that concept was definitely in The Walking Dead.
Right. It
Yeah.
was, yeah, and cannibalism, I guess.
Yes. Ugh. Ugh.
Anyway,
can't.
I mean,
Anyway, moving on.
there are, I mean, you could, there are some similarities. There are some similarities between that movie, which was made in the 70s, I believe, maybe early 70s, and maybe what is happening now. I mean, we're not scooping up citizens and turning them into meal bars, but there is
No.
we are dealing with social unrest between the regular people and the elites of each country, shall we say, and the fact that maybe very much here we're getting, more and more of the population is getting priced out of things as well.
Yes, I agree with you there. Yeah.
And I did, I did see sorry, we're going back to a little bit of Canadian politics, but I did see on I think it was one of our news channels here, CTV, had a headline saying that this year, because of the price of beef,
Right.
I guess, it was a whole thing about summer barbecues, and it said that a lot of families were now being priced out of
Huh?
the barbecue, like staple food, like whether it's burgers or hot dogs or steaks,
Yeah.
because
Totally.
they can't afford to buy that stuff. So for a barbecue, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's a serious problem.
That's sad in a way. That's really sad.
And I think one of them this week as well showed, I think it was, again, maybe it was in the same article, but they had like an Angus AAA steak in the States
And it was like what?
is $15, right?
Yeah, here it's more.
The same steak here, so the same grade, and the same weight, it was $55.
Oh my goodness, that is
And
crazy.
there should be no reason for that in a
No.
G7 nation.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
That's
and that's not tariffs doing
mm.
that. That's not the trade war between the US and Canada at the moment. That's got nothing to do with that, with
Do
his
you think it's
tariffs,
supply and demand?
because we grow our own cows, shall we say. So it's not like, we produce our own beef. So something's very wrong there for a start. How that relates to flat Earth, I'm not sure. But anyway, there you
go. True. But way off topic there.
That's it would suggest there's some kind of, I don't know, price fixing, or inflation is finally catching up with all the money printing that we've done here, and all the carbon tax, which is supposed to make us better off, is finally catching up with us. I don't know. Or, I don't know. Supply and demand, right? That's the whole, importing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people every year is going to affect that as well. But that's a story for another episode,
that's
children.
Another episode. Put that on the list. I do want to go back. I want to go back to flat Earth, and I want to talk about the Bible. The Bible.
Yes, that's right in there, isn't it? I think
this is like a big key when it comes to it, right?
Right.
Like they said, the Bible and religious texts say that that the Earth is flat, right?
Right.
Some interpret religious texts to describe a flat, immobile Earth, and I get that from the time that the Bible was supposedly written.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They had no technology like we do today. They weren't able to see 10 feet above their heads, as opposed to what we're able to see now. So the technology much different.
Right.
I also believe that the flat earthers, as we call them, and you have said this before, is they are oftentimes anti-establishment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they would now be on a side of something that is organized religion versus an established thing like science or government is odd to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I can't even describe it. The Bible has been questioned for how long now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of science. And there's no way, we had talked about this before, there's something like God, there's no way to prove that God is real. It's just something you either choose to believe or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that you can put the Earth being round or flat into that category. It's a completely ridiculous idea. Science is an experimental thing. It's something you can prove.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I don't know.
Should be.
It should be.
Which does lead us on to one of these flat Earth influences.
Yeah.
The reason why this episode came about was that we started researching flat Earth, and I noticed that there was some infighting between two flat earthers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, what's going on here?" Anyway, there was an experiment done.
Drama.
There was an experiment done in December of just last year by one of the flat Earth people, Jaron. I forget his last name. I will put a note to his YouTube channel so everybody can maybe catch up on what's going on. Mm-hmm. But he's been flat earthing for 10 years or whatever, and now he's not.
Yeah. Now
he's a full globester now. So and he would have, and I want to try and get him on here to talk about his experiences for sure. But yeah,
I have lots of questions. Actually.
As you said, I mean, and as he has said in recent videos on his channel, is that you can prove that the Earth is a globe with scientific experiments. So
right, he has said that multiple times. I've heard him say that.
Yeah. So he would use some of these arguments that we've talked about in this episode. He's used much more aggressively or defensively than we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for sure. And the flat earthers are still, the prominent flat earthers are still using those the arguments that it is all a lie. I mean, it's a global conspiracy, and that it's impossible, and they've got all these models to show that the Earth is flat and blah blah blah. So I don't know. Anyway, but that leads us on to. And we've talked about this, and it's not in our notes. But is this all a simulation? Is this all like the Matrix? There's another episode for us. So
I
we could
have
be arguing.
texted.
We could be arguing this. We could be arguing that this
We
is a
can.
globe or this is flat Earth, and we're missing the whole point that none of it's real, and it's all just a hallucination in
I mean,
our.
that's a question because I've told you I have had deja vu and like weird, like, what do you call them? Weird coincidences that are like a little more than coincidences. You have been there and witnessed some of them. And I've also texted you and been like, wow, that's messed up. That's a little weird. But I don't know. Are they coincidences or were they planned?
Yeah, I don't know,
Or were they
but it's
just a
like
glitch?
it's like those little things, right? And you take it. Everybody could probably relate to this, where you're thinking about somebody that you've not
Yeah,
seen in a while or heard from in a while, and then all
totally.
of a sudden you bump into them in the local store, or you get
Yep.
an email, or you get a text or a phone call from them, and you're like, "I was just thinking about you."
Yes.
How
That
weird is
actually
that?
happened to me less than a week ago.
Right?
It did.
You
I
know.
was thinking about this particular individual and she like walked into my store. Just walked in like the next day, I think it was. And I was like, that's weird because I was just like thinking about it.
So anyway, so that's another episode. So
It is. Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
Anyway, so this is just part one of this flat Earth ish kind of episode because we took a bit of a detour on some
We did.
things,
We did. Well, like usual. Yeah.
like usual. But yeah, so this is just part one. We'll be back. We'll be back with part two, and back with a guest or two as well, hopefully. So
Yes.
we'll
More qualified people to discuss some of these things than us because
yeah.
we're just guessing.
Share your thoughts in the comments and be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.